P2P lending partner, Faircent, our VIP lounge partner, Cred, our InsurTech partner, Cover Genius. Ladies and gentlemen, as you're witnessing since morning, we are having thought leaders, influencers, stalwarts from the respective dimension of fintech industry come here and share their perspectives with all of us. And we're going to continue this theme and this paradigm of having these panel discussions, conversations around the latest disruption, not from theoretical perspective also, but from the world of practitioners. Our next topic for our panel discussion is going to be pivoted around the central question stating that will KiranaTech tap into Bharat's elusive fortune? So it's a very interesting and a very dynamic topic to dwell on, considering the fact that the term Kirana is used to describe small mom and pop shops that still make up the majority of India's $932 billion retail economy, with over 90% of FMCG sales in India happening through Kirana stores, and that has only grown during the pandemic period. Modernization of the Kirana store represents a major need, and at the same time, it's safe to say that it's space for immense opportunity too. So, to maneuver, to facilitate and really lead this part of our conversation, we have a panel of illustrious speakers and moderators. We have for us, I'm just going to introduce the moderators, and by the time they come, we have with us Dr. Jasmin B. Gupta, who is the CEO and co-founder of LXME. And before I introduce the rest of the speakers, I request you all to please put your headsets on for the best seamless experience during the conference. It's a silent conference, so if you're wondering why can't you hear me, it's because the mic is not working, only the headset is. So make sure you're plugged into your headsets very nicely to get the best of seamless experience. And one of the greatest objective of this platform is to also prepare India for the G20 Leadership Summit, which is coming next year. And we somehow want to position India as a dominant fintech thought leader and showcase our fintech prowess to the world to take on the demands of 1.4 billion unbanked adults, as well as the digital transactions which are happening online on a daily basis. So with this context, ladies and gentlemen, let me reiterate that this part of the conversation and panel discussion is on the realm and space of the topic called Will KiranaTech tap into Bharat's elusive fortune? And a moderator for this session, ladies and gentlemen, is Dr. Jasmin B. Gupta. She is the CEO and co-founder at LXME. And joining her on stage are going to be the following speakers: Mr. Sandeep Deshmukh, co-founder and CEO at Elasticrun. We have with us Mr. Anand Kumar Bajaj, founder, MD and CEO at PayNearby. We have with us Manan Dixit, CEO, Jambopay Express by FidyPay. We have with us Mr. Jaideep Pawar, CEO and Director, Patent and GRAMePAY. So with this context, I hand the stage over to you, Ms. Jasmin. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I think it's the best time of the day. It's the lunch time, and it's a nice topic that we have today with us for a discussion. Will KiranaTech tap into Bharat's elusive fortune? So, of course, as we know, 88% of Indian retail market is unorganized, consisting of Kirana stores, the so-called mom and pop stores. Yeah, and because these are called mom and pop stores, I will also want to introduce why I am here and why I'm moderating this session. So, LXME is India's first neobank for women. And when we talk of KiranaTech, women play a very important role in not only owning Kiranas and managing those businesses, but also where men are the owners of Kirana stores, we've seen women managing the business along with them. So I think the representation of women in the entire KiranaTech space is extremely, extremely important. And that's why we have me from LXME, representing, and of course, the entire panel. I think all of them are doing fabulous work in the financial inclusion space. So I'm looking forward to an amazing, amazing conversation with all the stalwarts here. So to start with, Sandeep, we start with you. A very, very basic question for the entire audience to start with. What is KiranaTech? And if you can give some solutions of KiranaTech prevalent in the market space right now.
So, am I audible? I have no idea if it's working. Okay. So I don't think there is a different category called KiranaTech as such. I mean, we are building a B2B e-commerce platform for Indian rural ecosystem, and our supply chain ends at the Kirana. If I have to define KiranaTech, I'll suggest anything that organizes the supply chain from all the point of manufacturing for all the manufacturers, consolidate the supply chains in between, and something that terminates into the Kirana stores, which builds the entire demand side of the Kiranas, would be a key component of the KiranaTech. Apart from that, of course, there could be some more components of how the store itself manages its own inventory, its own stores, as well as how does it manage its own customers. But in my view, the bulk of the solution of the KiranaTech would come from the organizing the supply chain from the point of manufacturing till culminating into the Kirana stores.
Thanks, Sandeep. So coming to Anand. Anand, we know this is a huge market and the entire online retail industry is expected to grow to a 1.3 trillion industry by 2025. So how big do you think is the scope of this opportunity in terms of digitalization and in terms of product solutions for the Kirana stores?
Dr. Jasmin, this segment is the lifeline of the entire nation. They are the neural networks of connected digital entrepreneurs and with a two-way transmission protocol. And let me explain. And you're right, actually, women are the GDP reserve of a nation. And half of the work at Kirana is, of course, family, which is unpaid care. Leena Datwani will talk about it later. The idea of growing and simplifying, modernizing, digitizing retailing is now. And the fact that every one of us have been trusting the local retailer since our childhood, they have been trusting us for the microcredits that they give. They are a pseudo banker, if I may say. And the key part here is to see what all can you relay on these railroads with a two-way transmission now. It's just not about the grocery going into your house or a microcredit given to you. These Kirana stores, at least I would say, 1 million plus retailers at PayNearby worked through the lockdown, and the government was giving subsidy in the bank account. These were the guys who were giving it in the hands of the citizens. Their credibility has augmented to almost a sovereign grade. Now their shelf does not matter, really. The opportunity to be harnessing this connected neural network is amazing and left to your and my imagination. How much can you port through this network in an assisted digital mode, digital or phygital as you may call it? Bridgital, I would coin and use this term someone told recently, is bridging the digital divide of the Bharat and the India. 1 trillion, I think, would be surpassed sooner than you would have heard or read or planned for it. I see humongous distribution opportunity with this millions of retail partners on the ground.
Thank you, Anand. Yes, and I think the latest Accenture survey also said that even if 10% of the Kirana stores are digitalized, even if 10% is digitalized, it will give an overall 5% boost to the entire retail consumption and also 2.3 million jobs getting created. So I think the impact is going to be really, really awesome. Yeah. So moving on to Manan. What do you think are the key differentiation and retention strategies in this space? So we have seen a lot of newer business models coming up. Of course, lending is something wherein, of course, Kirana stores look forward to loans, and of course, that credit penetration is extremely, extremely less. That's where a lot of fintechs are working. Also, at the same time, we have seen many newer use cases in terms of automating the entire digital storefront for the Kirana stores, so that the entire accounts payables, receivables, inventory management, vendor management, entire stock management, sales and distribution, entire thing gets digitalized. So, what is your view on the newer models that are evolving and in terms of differentiation and retention?
So it's like if you see any business out there, whether it's a kirana or an enterprise or a corporate, everybody needs a full ecosystem at the end of the day. Now, when we talk about corporates or enterprises, the ecosystem is more accessible to them. But when you see the bottom of the pyramid, that's where the things reach very lastly or very rarely to them. And like as shared by Sandeep and Anandji, these are the lifelines at the end of the day. Now, they have been given tech to enable their shops on the digital platform. They have been given tech to manage their inventory. They have been given techs to manage their balances or accounts. They have been given tech for the lending. Now, what is differentiator is how we can combine this kind of ecosystems on one platform and bring them a unified experience to them so that they can see, okay, my inventory is this, my banking is that, my payments are this, I'm giving this loans to somebody, or I'm giving out this credits to even my customers through my ecosystem and everything. So that's, I think, is going to be a differentiator in a long run. Plus, how we can harness this data of this KiranaTech that is coming in and understand what could be his requirement in the coming days to come in, whether for the inventory, whether for the credit, whether he's low on his bank balance, or whether he needs a insurance side of it to take care of his inventory and everything. So that is something which is going to be the differentiator, and that is going to be a challenge as well, because these are different industries that we are talking about, different regulations that we are talking about, and this is like whoever the enterprise that gets into that, it's like playing with the fire. So you have to be really careful what you are getting into, because that's hell lot of data. That's oceans of data that you'll get into. So you'll really have to be very careful into it. But that's what my thought process is in terms of distinguishing that can come in picture.
Super. So, Jaideep, your views on the same question?
So I have a different view, Dr. Jasmin. One is we are still a long way to go. If you look at the entire ecosystem of Kiranas, we have close to about 20 million Kirana stores in the country, as reported officially. Unofficially, there are a large number of them. Of that, only 10% of them have adopted digital technology and digital solutions, while most of them have taken payment offerings like Paytm, QR codes from various payment processors. But there is still a missing gap, which I guess is expected to be filled by ONDC platform, which is expected to come and largely address that challenge. Just to give you a backdrop of number, how this sector is very important for the nation. In terms of GDP, it contributes to around 10% of the GDP in the nation. In terms of billion-dollar revenue, about $1,000 billion is expected to come by 2030 in this sector itself. In terms of the segment, 70% of the Kirana segment does cater to food and grocery segment. Big e-commerce companies like Amazon, Flipkart are not able to solve this problem. Now, looking at these milestone challenges and last mile delivery challenges, there are unique personas of the KiranaTech owners out there, or Kirana owners out there. He is a one-man shop, or maybe maximum 2-3 people running that entire ecosystem. They have adopted digital technology, for that matter, in their own ways. During pandemic, we have seen most of the Kirana shop owners have created the WhatsApp group of the communities in and around, and they have serviced their customers in and around. In fact, they were the backbones during the entire pandemic era which we have gone through, and they have rather regained the trust of the consumers now. Consumers are believing in them more. What is required from the ecosystem and as well as government, which I'm sure government is doing a lot of work in terms of building an ONDC platform and helping the ecosystem. The differentiating factor is how we are able to capture value in the ecosystem and how we are trying to create a value for the ecosystem. Now, let me try and explain this. The Kirana ecosystem is driven by multiple stakeholders in the company. There is a fast-moving consumer good manufacturing company, they have a super stockist, then they have a distributor, then they have a wholesaler, and then comes a Kirana. There are multiple stakeholders in the ecosystem, and if we are trying to address that, only we will service the end Kirana owner out there, and we are missing the gap between the middle layer out there. We are trying to fool ourselves. If we don't take care of the middle layer out there, we don't integrate the entire supply chain ecosystem, what Sandeep mentioned some time back, we are missing the huge gap. While a lot of fintechs, a lot of KiranaTechs are trying to address this gap, but there is still a long way to go. And I'm very sure with ONDC coming in, these all challenges will be plugged in, and hopefully in days to come, we will have a lot of exciting times for the entire ecosystem, especially in KiranaTech. They will create a lot of employments. They contribute to about 10% of the workforce in the country nowadays.
Of course. Thanks, Jaideep. So since you talked about ONDC, I will jump again to Anand. We would want to know your views on ONDC and how it will impact the entire Kirana space.
Jasmin, ONDC is an enabler, it's a leveler to give an opportunity to everyone to be able to do awesome commerce. And we have been a believer. When I left the bank, Yes Bank I was with, and we came out to digitize and modernize retail. And let me explain why we wanted to do that. Because there was a concentration of the big techs and the big basket, grocers, DMart. They were concentrating on the digital savvy segment. I will avoid saying digital savvy greedy segment, but that is what it was. All of them were taking away the Fiamma, the Wills, and the Dove soap through online procurement, leaving behind the Lux and Hammam at a retailer. Now you see a scenario where retail is evolving, retailers are not, was the statement. And we said, let us jump out and create this ecosystem. We filed for a patent, which we backed last year. And glad that the whole ONDC initiative is on the lines and length of what we have been deeply thinking of around connecting the buyer, seller, a logistics connected, a payment rail attached, and a lender. Prashant Thakkar is doing a great job there to bring up again another microcredit. So all the unified stimulus and cohesion, like Prashantji said in the previous session, that if you are able to be together, then you can solve for anything. And it is just not about fighting against e-com, but being able to do retail Sashakti-karan. To digitize and modernize retail is the real thing, because people are getting digital savvy, consumers are getting here and now, oh yes, abhi, moment is coming. And if you can do Uberization of the stuff at the grocery store, what else would one want? I'm glad that the same Nandan and team who were who laid the railroads of the Bharat with Aadhaar, with Pratyaksham Pramanam moment, which the whole lockdown India could survive through, is standing by again and building up this another unified rails. This is the truth of the hour, Jasmin.
Right. So while I think we've spoken about opportunities, we've spoken about the various solutions and the differentiation strategies, let's talk about monetization as well. Lots of fintechs are getting into the space. So Manan, what do you think? How will the monetization for the fintechs working in this space or planning to work in this space will happen, or how is it happening?
So that's a tough one. Because monetization in fintech is something which is a far cry that we have all seen with all this UPI coming in picture, digital payments, bringing on subventions and all that. But I think especially in terms of connected experiences that we talked about, in terms of whether it is a connected experience towards the logistics, towards the banking side of it, the credit that we have been talking about. So that is where the monetization would come in picture. May it be only the BIPs into it, but when you see the segment at large, so that's where it would be the piece where the monetization can happen at a good pace into it. And given the segment, it's going to be a very huge scope for the fintechs to establish themselves into the connected experience of the KiranaTech, so that the ecosystem is getting benefited out of it and everybody is able to use the service at large.
Okay. Sandeep, your thoughts on monetization?
Uh, Sorry, I have slightly different view on the monetization. I think if you are looking at payment processing side, then the monetization will be challenging. But if we solve the core problem of the credit requirement through the supply chain and at the storefront, then in my view there is a substantial opportunity. What we have seen, at least in our use case, is uh, if you just look at a traditional credit distribution from the distributor community, while it is perceived to be there, not more than 25% even the urban stores have access to that credit through distributor. Even in the markets like Mumbai, almost 65% plus category C and D stores don't have access to credit today. So if a fintech solution can solve for that credit requirement on demand in a seamless manner, I think there is a substantial opportunity for monetization. At least what we have seen, we operate in deep rural market where there is anyway no standard credit available. And some of the pilots that we have done, and one of the pilot has scaled up substantially now, is if the credit can be available on tap, on demand, in a seamless manner, exactly at the moment when the store wants it, then there is an offtake. And there is offtake not only from a numerical perspective, but there is a substantial revenue opportunity in terms of spread, in terms of origination fees that is available. So I think it's about figuring out the right product, and if it can be delivered in the right way, I think we have a solid use case wherein it can be monetized and scale in a very profitable way.
Okay. So we have seen some of the fintechs closing down shops as far as their solutions in KiranaTech space is concerned. While I would not want to give some names, I'm sure we have all seen successful use cases and not so successful use cases. So Jaideep, what are the learnings for all of us from, if you would want to share some of these use cases from your experience, and what can be our crucial learnings from these?
So, couple of things which a startup or a fintech or a KiranaTech has to understand is the problem which they are solving for the said Kirana owner, because he's the one who is going to drive your technology platform and he's going to adapt to it. The most critical thing which he's afraid of is that the KiranaTech never gives you the desired service support ecosystem when he's required. That's one. The second and most important thing is that his data, which he has collated by building relationship over the years in the community, is poached by that. And third, whether the new company which is coming on board and offering any technology services, be it GST or booking or accounting, is adding value or bringing in more business to him. If these problems are solved, then maybe the said Kirana owner, who probably most of the mom and pop stores out here in India are one-man person army out there, will definitely look at adapting the solutions. The other unfortunate part of the entire ecosystem, which is why some of the companies have shut shop, is that there is no standardization in the ecosystem. Everybody is bringing in his or her solution to the said Kirana owner, and they want to have multiple apps deployed at the same location, which is practically not possible for the same. There is a lot of collaboration issues in the entire ecosystem, which is what is expected to be solved using the ONDC ecosystem when it evolves. Lastly but not least, Kirana owners still prefer dealing in cash. To be honest, that's the hard reality. They don't want to come into the ecosystem because there are taxation issues, compliance issues. Dealing in cash gives them a lot of flexibility. It's out there. Customers can be managed in a better way, but largely the ecosystem has been that way for quite some time, and it's up to the ecosystem player. When I say ecosystem player, fast mover consumer companies, then there are other consumer durable companies have to come together and form a sort of a forum wherein they start investing in educating this ecosystem, wherein they put in some money in financial literacy campaigns, financial programs out there to why this ecosystem needs the digital transformation. And that's the key need of the hour. And I'm sure over a period of time it will evolve. With ONDC coming in, this will be done by not only by government, but all the players who are participating in the ecosystem. Banks have taken the initiative first. It's a great thing that banks and fintechs like PayNearby, FidyPay, Pay10 At the ground level, we are already doing it. We are servicing over 50,000 odd retail points out there. Majority of them are KiranaTech out there, and we are trying to see if we can address the concerns which they have in the ecosystem.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Jaideep. Good insights. And Manan, would you want to add to that? Any key learnings from your experience in the space? I mean, considering both.
I totally agree with what Jaideep is saying, that at the end of the day, you can't keep on loading the Kirana stores with multiple apps and multiple solutions, because eventually it's a one-man show. So that's where the consolidation has to happen. That's where the ecosystem play has to happen. And to add to that, today, like FidyPay has been doing that part of it, wherein we are giving out connected banking experiences, digital payments, collections, POS solutions, even integrating with your ERPs or existing solutions. So that's a play that has to come in picture. And that's the only future that, like in my thought process, that can survive in the long run. So eventually, what we have been talking about, the bigger ecosystem, the connected experience, is what we all about.
Great. So, Anand,
I want to make a point before you ask a question. Actually, the rocket reaches the moon, the destination, but not all chambers reach along. There are a lot of burnouts. So it's not like writing an obituary and complaining about who fell through, but it is an ecosystem which has evolved through learnings, collective they are. And these are entrepreneurs. Let's understand, if they have attempted, they have failed, they have stood by again and come up again. So it's an experiment and well worth the ecosystem's benefit, that the startups may shut down, but they have given a good shot, basis which the learnings, an investor has brought in another startup, or two more startups have seen the right path. So it's a collective learning process. Sorry, I just wanted to make this comment.
Right. And I think that's why it's important for us to learn from those experiences, both sides of the story. Right. So great. And because we are talking of Bharat's elusive fortune, just wanted your views on how KiranaTech and whatever we are doing, building, is going to enable financial inclusion at a macro level.
Why do you say elusive fortune?
I mean, that's...
It is the reality.
Right.
Yatharth, don't miss the point. But like I said, look, beyond artificial intelligence, there is huge amount of quantum of human intelligence. The Kirana guy knows that Sharma ji's kid is going to buy a bike, or Gupta ji is going to do a low cost housing, or Rahman Sahab is moving to town, and so on. If you are able to collect that insight and digitize that, imagine how much of two-way transmission can you harness. We at PayNearby, we say we are DaaS, distribution as a service. We have built a railroad, we've attached a platform, and we have added services after services, and it gets published. It's each one to his own. It's not about installing multiple apps and deleting it, but on the same railroads, if you are able to add more wagons, more passengers, that is what you are sweating the network with. And the retailers are quite intelligent. It's like a Swiss knife, each one to his own. I still use the toothpick only from there, but some use for cork opening and bottle opening and so on. Why I say so? A pharmacist, it's loosely used word. Kirana is a loosely used word. It's for all. A pharmacist sells insurance very well because he can see intelligently these medicines are for a bike accident, and he says, why didn't you insure this? It's very easy for him to turn around and start cross-selling, Jasmin. And likewise, a hardware shop is visited by the mason, plumber, electrician, painter, carpenter, and maids. So he knows there is a rail ticket required or a remittance to the family required. And so likewise, the opportunity is huge. Government is doing its bit. So is the startup ecosystem. The ONDC added with OCEN account aggregator, assisted account aggregator at that. Because credit with the data is one part, and credit without the data is another. And I must call out the work that Centrum Microfinance under leadership of Prashantji did with us. We built a tasir, a texture of the retailer, and called it Bharosa score, credibility score. These are new to credit customers, retailers. They have never done a banking in the way, like you said, they are shy from. And the fact is that they are under the GST net now. The fact that every transaction we do goes through a TDS, so everyone is understanding the advantage of coming to digital. So we built a Bharosa score out of it, Jasmin. And like Elasticrun said, that it is important to give credit. That's a lifeline. The same retailer, we saw data patterns of 2 hours mute and then transaction and then 2 hours mute. That 2 hour mute was nothing but a capital scarcity. What you said, we were able to infuse a small 50,000 rupee microcredit. Now, a bank would not want to do a less than 5 lakh rupee loan because it's difficult to administer and collect it back. But Prashant stood along with us and said, Bharose pe hum kayam hai. And 50,000 rupee loan, we give a zero default. 72% rise in the business of the 52% retailers who worked with us. That's the power of digitization. So it's not an elusive thing, it is yatharth. And like we say at PayNearby, yahi mati ubregi, yahi zarra chamkega. Uttishta Bharata. This is the moment when Bharat is awakening and adapting to digitization.
Amazing, amazing thoughts. So, Sandeep, coming to you. Of course, startups are upping their game and competition is also increasing. So, what are your thoughts on the competition in this space? Big players and small players all put together here, and how is it evolving?
So before we get into competition, if you just take a bird's eye view of where the ecosystem is, right? I mean, I think there was the number of Kiran stores in the country. I think there are various reports saying different things, but let's take a common minimum number of say 1 million stores. So if there are 10 lakh stores, we have over 500 plus brand even at a national level going to this 1 million stores. And there is no common supply chain. What that means is we have permutation combinations of million multiplied by 500. And this is a very conservative estimate. This is just massive. And each one of them planning their own equation, their own supply chains, their own path to stores, availability, data extraction, credit extension. This is just a massive web that is running informally. I mean, this is true India. It's really only God knows how that system is working without any system or any plan, and still there is a method to that madness. I don't think any one entity can solve this. I think there are multiple pieces to be solved in this. Someone needs to work backward on the data of what consumption is happening. Someone needs to work backward from the manufacturing to what their supply chain planning needs to be, manufacturing planning needs to be. Someone needs to work on what credit lubrication that is required for all of this equation. And maybe those 4, 5, 6 folks would have to work together, and maybe 10 folks would have to work together and then support the ecosystem. And this might still just service, say, 100,000 stores. I don't know if all of that can really reach even 1 million stores, forget 10 million stores. So I don't think at this point of time the concern would be about will there be competition coming. I think the more competition is better at this point of time, because the problem is just massive, just immense. I don't think even 10x more companies than what we have today would be able to handle the whole of equation. And the second part of the same equation is the system that has supported this whole equation till now has its own cracks coming in. So the scalability is a challenge. So while it will continue to support the day-to-day matters, there is serious concern about what happens to the next generation. That if it is an unorganized supply chain that is supporting this whole Kirana ecosystem, or including the store itself, what happens when the aspirations of the next generation? If you see the distributor churn in most of the large brands, it's upward of 30%. I mean, every year, third of your distributors move away. Who solves for that equation? So even if someone is averse to tech, the ecosystem will push you to get into that market. So going to that point, I think emergence of competition is a good thing. I think at least a decade away from the point that we'll say that the competition is maturing and now there needs to be some consolidation or some limitation.
Of course. Great. So, Jaideep, I think this is the last question from our side, and we will then be open for questions from the audience. What, according to you, are the challenges in the KiranaTech space, and your final thoughts, closing lines?
So the real challenge is on the transparency. The ecosystem is still not transparent. Lot of stakeholders are doing it in a closed loop. Every fast-moving consumer good company has its own network, and they are not sharing the data. So collaboration is missing. That's one. The second challenge is of a credit offtake. Suddenly during Diwali and Dussehra or any festive season, consumer needs a certain requirement of credit, which is missing. And largely since these people are dealing in cash, they are managing businesses in cash, no bank is willing to give them urgent credit. So that's a critical requirement which needs to be solved. And the most important factor is that there is an emergence of deep discounting by large e-commerce companies. So that's a real threat which they are facing in the market, be it Walmarts of the world or Amazons of the world. They are trying to penetrate the market, but I'm seeing it that last couple of years they are trying to penetrate this market, but they have found it very difficult to enter and penetrate this ecosystem because of the kind of trust and relationship which these guys have built.
And especially we saw this in the pandemic.
Yes.
Wherein I think big players failed and the Kirana stores actually were the lifeline for the people.
Absolutely. And the reason for that is that the investments done in this relationship for ages, even the distributor gives the credit to a Kirana guy for say around 30 days or 45 days, depending upon the relationship which he enjoys with the said distributor, which is unlikely not possible with someone like Amazon. They would want funds to be given to them, even if he's buying a product at a large discount. He would need to be paid well in advance, which is not possible for a Kirana guy. So these are the challenges, and I'm sure industry is working on solving those challenges, and maybe in days to come, we'll see some of the large fintechs. Few fintechs have solved the problem on a B2B level. They have given storefronts, to name few, Udaan and Shopee, Kirana Shop, Kirana King, Store King. There are a lot of them. Even Elasticrun is doing it in a B2B space. But we are yet to see on the Kirana store space whether the problem is really getting solved or not.
Right. So, Manan, closing lines from your side.
So as spoken by Jaideep and Anandji and Sandeep, that see, at the end of the day, it is all about solving the right problem rather than just creating solutions which doesn't make sense for the space. So we have to really understand the nerve of the KiranaTech and come up with a solution rather than coming up with our own thought processes that, okay, this might be a better fit for them. So doing a reverse psychology that what is good for them, what works for them is where the end of the day the solution would work, and that's where the industry would boom. So that's what the thought process is.
Thanks. Anand?
We are at it.
Thank you. Nice. Yes, Sandeep, your closing lines.
Yeah. So I think everyone covered this in some bits and pieces, right? I think we are at inflection point of history wherein this whole ecosystem will get restructured. I think it's a settled fact now that the general trade, modern trade, e-commerce, all of them will survive as against the concerns raised earlier or a few years ago that what happens to Kirana network when all of this network mature. I think that the general trade contribution, say from 88% might go to 70%, but it is going to stay there. And the second point of the same inflection point that has to be solved is if this 70% cannot be so disconnected in the tech maturity or operational maturity that what an e-commerce or modern trade will come in. So the injection of technology into this 70-80% of general trade is also given. That has to happen. So either someone of us sitting on this table will do it or someone else will do it, but that is bound to happen. And as part of that development of that tech and reorganization of that ecosystem, credit also, probably the most critical part of that ecosystem, that will also get injected, and we probably will see some of the large entities emerging out of pure Kirana credit space. That's what I think.
Super. So I think KiranaTech is here to stay, and I think Anand, you just said it in a few words. So great. I think that brings us to the closure of this panel discussion, and we are open for questions from the audience. Yes, please.
Thank you, the entire panel. The way you guys have explained the KiranaTech, the kind of passions you guys were, exhibiting was fantabulous. And it was really clear what you guys are here to make. But one question that keeps coming to my mind, and you everybody tried to answer that. Do we really think we are more focused around giving all those solution out to this kirana guys? These are the guys who are focused more on selling their products, but we are just hell-bent on giving every solution that is possible on earth. But maybe we are lacking somewhere in understanding what the real problem these guys are facing. While Anand mentioned one point, for example, if there is a guy who's repairing a bike, right? And if there's somebody who goes for a bike shop, bike repairing, he might sell him a bike insurance in some way or the other. So is this something that is currently lacking in the industry, because of which it is not taking a hockey stick kind of growth? Because we have the entire infrastructure ready, right? What really comes in is a plug and play kind of approach. And if there's something which is really lacking in the industry as of now, I mean, this is something that comes to my mind if I see current state of the entire industry.
You want me to answer that? Yes, you're right to large extent. And I will just give you an example of another platform which was built couple of years back. In 2007, Government of India had started a program called Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana. And pretty much similar challenges. There was lack of data, there was lack of clarity on how the insurance cover has to be given to the rural population. And this was solved by public and private partnership, which is what essentially ONDC is essentially envisaged to do that. ONDC is not going to be a regulator, but it is going to be an enabling platform. And that is going to solve most of the points which you mentioned. We don't understand what a Kirana guy really is asking for. A technology guy or a founder of a startup conceives some solution. He thinks that he believes that this is a problem to be solved. But that's actually not a problem which is required. He already has a set of customer base which he is servicing. What he needs is how he can get more business by creating a value for additional set of customers. That has to be solved. And in order to facilitate that, KiranaTech has to invest in doing some sort of groundwork, field work, research, and working with them. Understand.
Button, the consumer is able to pay and feed into a credit score and get a loan to him to buy from a FMCG distributor. This is the embedded journey. There could be 5 startups, all you know, and the 6th one which is stitching it all. So it's a collaboration and integration work more than 5 startups going and selling him a different set of solutions.
Oh, thanks, Anand.
Yes, please.
Hello, everyone. My question is to Sandeep, and it is about how do you see an opportunity to monetize the KiranaTech ecosystem, considering that there are so many personas, especially when you try to bring on an aggregator model, which essentially takes care of say 4 important requirements of a Kirana. One would be the ordering and the reorder level, probably that a kirana store has been informed by an FMCG company from who would be a part of the ecosystem. And the second thing would be with regards to the line of credit, which could be afforded by the FMCG companies itself in who act as anchors for these kirana stores. So is there an opportunity to monetize and work with banks on this framework?
Yes, I think your question was at a supra level that how do we monetize the overall KiranaTech, and within that the credit as a monetization. Did I get right?
Yes.
See, I think the answer also links back to the first question that was asked, that are we providing technology only for the sake of technology, or is there a real problem that we are solving? If the tech is only sent to sound like cool or look English and more glamorous, then there is no monetization there. We might have some apps going in, but what we have learned in our execution at least is, if you solve for availability, if you solve for pricing, and if you solve for credit, those are the 3 areas where the store owner is struggling. And if you solve those areas, then there is a direct impact on the profitability and the cash flows of the store owner. And until that impact on the cash flows happen, your opportunity monetization does not exist. And those are the 3 areas rather that we have seen, that if you have an engine that assures availability better than the traditional channels, then you have the pricing power and you can monetize. If you have the prediction engine that will help you reduce the working capital of the store, then you have very small opportunity to monetize, not very large, but there exists an opportunity. And third, in terms of credit, if you can solve a very frictionless rotational cash credit, wherein the monetization ticket size of every single transaction is very low. It is as low as on a ticket of invoice of 5,000 rupees, the absolute value comes down to say 5 rupees or 10 rupees for a weekly cycle. Then the monetization opportunity exists, or rather we survive on these 3 parameters. I'm just telling you what our business model is. So yes, that there definitely exists a monetization opportunity, but you have to solve the core problem where the store owner actually has the business challenges. And that's the reason probably all 3 of our solutions, you won't see any user face or any glamorous face to that, because these are mostly gray services working in the background when no one is watching it. Thank you.
Okay, do we have more questions? Yeah.
Hello, I'm Ajit from Infominds Technologies. Based on the discussion, I find out that there are 4 dimensions this entire business is having. One is supply chain, second one is credit, third one is compliances, fourth one is security. As a Indori, I saw success story of Shop Kirana very closely from recent past, and found that most of the providers or technology company solve the supply chain and then solve the credit problem. But most of the time they start cross-selling and other things and start ignoring compliances and the security of their data. So how your take on this part?
Should I take? So see, in terms of compliance and security, that is something which is nowadays has become a prime objective, specifically in terms of fintechs. If we talk about with all these regulations come in picture, with all the certifications coming in picture, that is like we don't have a choice per se that we can compromise on that part of it. Because even if in our initial days we just look away from it, as we grow and as we scale up, we have to take care of it. So compliance and security go hand in hand as you scale it up. In the initial days, you might give it a leeway. Okay, theek hai, abhi kaun dekhega. But as we grow forward, you have to take care of it. There's no two-twos about it. And that's how you scale up and that's how you grow at the end of the day.
I'm more concerned about the compliances of the Kirana shop owners.
So compliance isn't. Yeah, sorry. if you-
No, I would just add, it is again, compliance is not a separate service. It's a
Yeah.
part of embedded service. So if you have given an invoicing solution, it goes up to GST filing as well. If you have offered multiple services, it helps him to file a IT return to get a TDS refund. Yeah, it's not a separate line item that a third startup will come and do it. The messaging has to be loud and clear. At least what we do, I will tell you, is that our annual awards, the third award goes to the highest selling guy, the second is to the innovation, and the first is to the compliance. Yeah, the guy who brought in the best, most compliance and administered it down to the last mile. You have to ensure it. There is not even a negotiable.
So just to add to the point, compliance is not just about the Kirana owner following it. It is the other ecosystem players adhering to the compliance requirements. So it is where everyone has to invest and ecosystem has to put in time and effort in building that trust factor, putting in time to give him understanding of why GST is important for them. Most of them have not filed their GST returns. They have been dealing in cash. They don't understand the implications of GST, why they are required to come under GST fold. Once they come into GST fold, the credit access will be much easier. Nobody is doing that. So now with fintechs and startups taking this first movers advantage, KiranaTech companies going to them, they have to put on additional layer of doing this investment in doing the financial literacy programs, financial education campaigns to educate why they need to follow the compliances part. Compliances maybe as simple as getting a Shop Act license. Many of them don't have even a Shop Act license or even a standard license or food security or a food license to sell food and grocery items. So all those things are required and have to be educated to these people.
I guess that's where the tech comes in picture, no?
Okay, I think that's the end of the questions. I think the time is also up. Thank you so much for the active participation, audience. And thank you, panelists. It was a lively conversation. Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah, on behalf of Jasmin, I want to tell this to you all. You have deferred your lunchtime and stayed to hear this. So desserts are on her. So please grab it when you are there at the counter. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, everybody.